At number 1, we have the Springfield Trapdoor. Now, this one dates back to 1873. There's a bunch of different trapdoor variants out there, and we're not going to sit here and break down every little change or tiny detail. But the important thing to understand is that the trapdoor was really meant as a temporary solution. Originally, the idea was to take existing muskets and convert them into breech-loading rifles that could fire using a self-contained metallic cartridge. After the Civil War, where both sides were still mostly using muzzleloading rifles, it became pretty obvious that breech loaders were the way forward. And chambered in 4570, which is just a fantastic cartridge with a ton of history behind it, the trapdoor filled that role. Now, this specific rifle is actually a model 1884, not an 1873. And that's important because the 1884 has some noticeable improvements, which we'll get into in a bit. You've got the Springfield Armory marking and the American Eagle on the lock plate, and the stock carries an 1889 cartouche, which tells you when it was produced. Price-wise, you're usually looking at around $1,000 for one of these, and that's where American antiques start getting expensive. Once you get into early U.S. military rifles, especially Springfields, the money adds up fast. You could very easily have 10 grand tied up in an American military rifle collection without even realizing it. The guy I bought this from had it in his family for generations. It took him a while to finally let it go. You could tell he really didn't want to part with it, but he knew it was going to someone who would take care of it. The American Springfield Trapdoor rifle was officially adopted in 1873, making it the first standard-issue breech-loading rifle used by the U.S. military. Coming right after the Civil War, when muzzleloaders were still the norm, the advantage of firing a metallic cartridge was huge. Like I mentioned earlier, this example is an 1884 model rather than an 1873, and it benefits from a stronger action along with a redesigned rear sight. But first, let's walk through how it actually loads. You start with the hammer at the safety notch, similar to what you'd see on something like a Colt single-action Army. The next notch is the half-cock position, which allows you to load a 4570 cartridge. To fire the rifle, you pull the hammer back to full cock. When you open the breech block, the spent case is immediately ejected. It hits a small ramp underneath the block, which directs it away from your face, and I'll say this, it comes out pretty fast. One of the standout features of the 1884 is the Buffington rear sight. It's complicated. Personally, I'm not a big fan of it. You've got an aperture sight, an open triangular notch above it, and then a second aperture meant for very long-range volley fire. I'll be honest, anytime I take a single-shot breech-loading rifle to the range, I have a great time. Number 2, Remington Rolling Block. At first glance, it almost seems too simple. That's kind of the point. The Rolling Block's biggest advantage wasn't that it was fast or fancy, it was that it was dead simple. Easy to teach, easy to maintain, easy to manufacture, and strong enough to handle real military cartridges. That's why it didn't just stay in the US. These rifles ended up everywhere. South America, Scandinavia, parts of Europe, over 40 countries used rolling blocks at one point or another, often as their primary infantry rifle. Even by today's standards, the level of international arms sales is impressive. Mechanically, the system is straightforward. You've got a separate hammer and a rotating breech block. Cock the hammer, roll the block back, drop in a cartridge, close it up, and you're ready to fire. As the hammer comes forward, it physically locks the breech block in place. It's a really clever setup, even though it looks basic. Some of these were chambered in fairly stout cartridges too, like 7mm Mauser, which tells you just how strong the action actually was. This wasn't some weak stopgap design, and on the range, they're just fun. There's something satisfying about working an old single-shot breech loader, watching the round arc down range and hearing steel ring a moment later. Now, the rolling block wasn't especially common in U.S. service, which is ironic considering it's an American design. Most of them went overseas, often sold cheaply to nations that wanted to arm a large number of troops without paying repeating rifle money. That's also why, for a long time, rolling blocks were considered working man antiques. You couldn't find them in decent shape without taking out a loan. That's starting to change now, but compared to old Winchesters, they're still relatively approachable. Number 3, Beaumont Vitali. This rifle comes from the transitional period of the late 1800s, when militaries had abandoned muzzle loaders but had not yet settled on a standard repeating rifle design. During this time, armies experimented with single-shot bolt actions, rolling blocks, straight-pull systems, and various conversions all at once. The rifle in question's Dutch, dating back to the early 1870s, was originally issued as a single-shot bolt-action rifle. Many examples were later converted to repeaters with box magazines, so unconverted single-shot versions are less common, and represent the rifle's original configuration. This specific rifle later entered Ethiopian service, identifiable by the Lion of Judah stamped on the receiver. The marking is professionally applied, indicating formal surplus transfer rather than informal trade. Such transfers were commonly handled through European arms dealers, particularly Belgian firms active in the late 19th century surplus markets. Mechanically, the rifle uses a bolt-action system that cocks on opening and locks at the root of the bolt handle. It feeds onto a flat-loading tray and was not originally equipped with a magazine. If a round fails to fire, the only method of recocking is to reopen the bolt. The action contains no coil springs. The firing pin is powered by a V-spring housed inside the bolt. Opening the bolt compresses the spring, pulling the trigger releases it. While functional, this design raised concerns among military planners about long-term durability and spring fatigue. Because the V-spring occupies the bolt body, the bolt handle can't be bent. As a result, the Dutch never developed a bent bolt cavalry version of the rifle. Instead, cavalry units were issued rolling block rifles, resulting in two fundamentally different action types being used simultaneously. The rolling block uses a rotating breech block and hammer, with the hammer directly supporting the breech on firing. Its mechanical simplicity and strength led to widespread adoption across Europe, Scandinavia, South America, and colonial forces, including later use with smokeless cartridges. The bolt-action rifle fires an 11.3mm bottleneck cartridge, often compared conceptually to a necked-down .45-70. Later ammunition revisions used lighter bullets and higher velocities, producing a flatter trajectory. Corresponding sight adjustments reflected contemporary doctrine, emphasizing long-range volley fire rather than individual precision. The sight system relies on friction adjustment rather than clicks or stops. This design philosophy parallels rifles such as the U.S. Springfield Trapdoor, which likewise favored economical conversion of existing arms into single-shot breech loaders rather than entirely new designs. Number 4, French model 1874 Gras rifle. This was the first metallic cartridge service rifle officially adopted by the French military, and it came directly out of the lessons learned from the Franco-Prussian War. Before this, France was still using chase pot, which was a paper cartridge needle fire rifle. It was accurate, but by the early 1870s, it was obvious that metallic cartridges were the future. Cartridge manufacturing had improved enough that the risks the French were worried about a few years earlier just weren't an issue anymore. What the French wanted was a practical solution that didn't involve scrapping millions of existing rifles. The answer was a conversion system developed by Captain Basile Gras. His design replaced the chase pot bolt and chamber with a new bolt and metallic cartridge barrel, turning the rifle into something that was functionally very close to a completely new firearm. The resulting rifle fires an 11mm black powder cartridge and uses a simple, strong bolt action that cocks on opening, just like later bolt rifles. It proved to be extremely durable. During testing, these rifles were pushed far beyond normal service pressures and held up without failure, which gave the French military confidence in the design. The Gras was officially adopted in 1874 and entered full production shortly after. Over the next decade, millions were produced, not just as infantry rifles, but also in several shorter carbine versions for cavalry, artillery crews, and the gendarmerie. Mechanically, they're all the same rifle, just scaled to different roles. One important update came in 1880 when the French modified the action to better vent gas away from the shooter's face in the event of a ruptured cartridge. Most rifles in service were upgraded to this standard. The Gras never fought the major European war it was designed for, but it saw extensive use in the colonial service and remained in circulation well into the smokeless powder era. It sits right in that transitional period after muzzleloaders, before repeaters, and it represents a solid, well-engineered solution to a rapidly changing battlefield. Number 5, Martini-Henry. This is a British single-shot service rifle, chambered in 5.77 450, and there's no way around it. This is a big cartridge, long case, bottlenecked heavy bullet, and originally loaded with black powder. This rifle dates to the late 1800s. The example here is from 1888, which puts it well into its service life. The Martini-Henry was Britain's first purpose-built breech-loading rifle using a metallic cartridge, designed from the ground up as a single shot. Before this, the British were still converting muzzleloaders like the Snyder Enfield. This replaced all of that. The action is a falling block design based on the Peabody system, refined by Friedrich von Martini. There's no exposed hammer, everything's internal. Drop the lever, the block falls, you load around, close it, and fire. It's simple, strong, and surprisingly fast once you get the rhythm. cartridge itself is one of the defining features. Compared to something like 4570, it's slightly longer and holds more black powder. Bullet weight's typically around 480 to 485 grains, so recoil is noticeable but manageable. It hits hard and it was absolutely effective at the ranges armies cared about at the time. Sights are basic military iron sights, set up for distance and volley fire rather than precision shooting. Still, when they're regulated properly, the rifle shoots better than most people expect from a 19th century service gun.